Hello everybody and welcome to the 2016 Plan Study in collaboration with the American Association of Medical Dosimetrists and the Radiosurgery Society. We're really excited about this year for lots of reasons. One of them is our new system we're going to use to guide you through the plan study called Prono. And second, because it's a really interesting study this year on SBRT prostate. My name is Ben Nelms and I'll be guiding you through this introductory video and help get you started. The outline of this video will be to go over the purpose and history of the plan study program, introduce you to Prono, our new automated system, how to participate in a plan study, and then a demonstration or a walkthrough of how to use the Prono system, get your real-time scoring, and submit your results. And then finally, we're going to walk through metric by metric the details of this year's prostate study and answer who should participate, what's the time frame of this study, how will my plan score be determined, and how do I get started? Now, many of you may be new to dosimetry or new to the plan study program, so I thought I'd spend a little time to remind everyone of the purpose of why we do these studies, and then to go over the history. The purpose of this type of initiative is to use rigorous scientific methods to do the following: measure and study plan quality produced by many systems and planners all over the world for a given set of CT images and structures, and using clearly defined quantitative planning goals and an objective scoring method. In other words, it's like a scientific study. We control certain variables and we let others be the subject of the study. Ultimately, we want to identify the best practices and high-performing individuals and systems. We want to then communicate those best practices with the community, with the ultimate goal to help drive out variation and improve plan quality in radiation therapy. It's hard to talk about the plan study without talking about the rich history we have, so I'd like to start off just with a definition of what we think of when we say plan quality. What we think of is the objective measure of how well a planned 3D dose distribution, when coupled with a unique 3D anatomy set, meets clearly defined goals and priorities. So notice this doesn't necessarily mean how accurate the dosimetry is, either delivered or planned, nor is it the accuracy of the contouring that goes before it. This is the singular part of the component where everyone is given a fixed set of anatomy and structures, so everyone's using the same human design, and then they're given a very specific set of goals and a transparent set of rules against which they'll be measured. That will produce a plan and a dose distribution, and then we can gauge in a quantified manner how well did each planner or planning system or delivery system meet those desired goals. So the history is really the plan challenge timeline. We're calling it more generally now the plan study program. That's made by our system called Prono, which I'll be speaking more later. But the history of this initiative is really rooted in what was called the plan challenge for so many years. I had a pleasure to work with the group that started the plan challenge and did this so successfully for so many years, and they were called Radiation Oncology Resources, better known as ROR. And really it kicked off in around about the year 2008 with Vicky Lacerba. Decided to do the first plan study just to see amongst her constituency what were the different methods, what were the different techniques that seemed to work for people. Then over the years, ROR grew, and so did the Plan Challenge initiative. You can see here for the years 2009 and 2010 is when it became part of the AAMD annual meeting. In the year 2011 is when we first introduced the quantified scoring, and this was a real sea change in how we did things, because now there was no subjectivity to how we graded the plans, and every planner knew exactly what their marching orders were and how they would be judged. This is important so that there was no confusion about what makes a good plan. We set up a specific set of rules and everyone was working towards those rules. The very first we did this method was in the year 2011. It was presented at that AAMD meeting that year, and actually that became a publication in the Pro Journal. And then all of these black dots you see on the timeline to the right are the very many plan challenges that were run, usually in conjunction with various meetings around the world. So without further ado, I definitely always want to recognize this being Vicky's idea in 2008, and then how it grew with the ROR team, all of which are familiar to you. Great bunch of guys. Here's the publication that we got based on that very first study. What's interesting about this publication is that it detailed the first study using this modern scoring method, but it's now become a key paper that's referenced in a lot of studies of plan quality that people are, treatment planning system companies are using to assess the value of their automated planning. So it's becoming more and more part of the norm to be able to think about plan quality in terms of a real measurement. So what we've learned through all these years is that plan quality is not necessarily guaranteed based on any specific treatment planning system or delivery modality. It's not based on one version versus another. It's not even guaranteed based on what's the experience of the planner or the certification level. We ran correlation studies, and a lot of those things didn't seem to statistically correlate. What we do find, though, is that there is a large amount of user skill that goes into determining it. How well can a certain user with a certain planning system generate a plan? That's what we're trying to learn, and then we're trying to then spread that information. So that if you're use a certain treatment planning system and a delivery modality, if you're not real happy with your plan score, we'll give you access to the people who excelled with your same profile of equipment so that you can learn what their tips and tricks and techniques were, so that then you can try that in your own clinic. The modern method, of course, was not just to have a bunch of pass-fail checkboxes, but to really define a robust, comprehensive set of metrics. I'm going to measure this particular DVH point, this particular confirmation number, organs at risk, targets. You've got all these sorts of things. And then each metric has a set of goals that go with it. What's minimally acceptable? What's ideal? And then how do you score between minimally acceptable and ideal? And then, of course, each metric has a priority, which we will then govern based on what its weight is. And all of this comes up with a system of scoring that we called PQM, or the plan quality metric. Here you're seeing an example from a plan study of the past, and this is a scorecard as generated by the partnership product we've always used, which is now called Plan IQ. It was originally called Quality Reports. And this is what automates the scoring of the plans. Here you see an example of a scorecard where there were 17 metrics where it generated a score, in this case 132 out of 150 max possible. Then, of course, when you generate scores, either for an individual metric or for the composite, you can then see how did my score line up with the population of my peers? Where do I stand in this distribution? Not only in the distribution of all planners, but maybe you can filter it by people who use VMAT, people who use IMRT, Proton users, certain planning system. We then will present those data and educate people on the sources of variation, and then also on the best practices we derive. And we, in all cases, we try to study the plan, do, study, act approach. In this case, the planning of the plan study would be a fixed data set, CT images and structure sets. There's no variability. Everyone starts with the same thing. You plan the algorithm. What are the metrics and the scoring functions per algorithm? And then, of course, we have to market it. We have to announce it so that everyone in the world who can hear about it might participate and be part of the learning exercise. The do part of it is to actually make the data and the instructions available, to then collect it, analyze what's submitted by all the participants, and generate the results. Then we study the results. We organize them. We look for trends. We find high performers and interview them to try to harvest the best practices. And then we would always prepare a presentation to be presented at a meeting, to be published in a paper, something like that. And then the act portion would be to actually make that presentation or make that publication, and then to start disseminating the best practices via recorded webinars, downloadable documents about tips and techniques, and then follow up with special videos when possible. So we try to close the loop, and so we not only collect data, but we study it and then show the results in a meaningful fashion so that everyone who participated can learn something and perhaps have the ability to contribute back to their industry or to learn from their peers. Now's the time in the presentation where I proudly introduce Prono. Prono stands for Profound Knowledge, and it will be the cloud-based system that will guide you through this plan study and all plan studies in the future. We're really proud to introduce this, and in fact, Prono, the system, was built based on a lot of the feedback we've been getting over the years. How to improve such studies, how to make them easier and more informative and more powerful. One of the requests we always had was, can you provide a scoring mechanism so that when I upload my data, I don't have to manually calculate my score, or my manual calculation won't differ from my ultimate score when I get it at the meeting. So the first room for improvement is to calculate and show the plan score in real time through the Prono website. This allows for full transparency, no confusion, and no variation in the scoring methods. Everyone will be scored based on the same engine, and you'll see it in real time. Automation. We wanted the Prono system to be on the cloud, not only score the plans, but to create your reports that you could download. You could investigate your score sheet. You could investigate every single metric. And you could decide whether you're even ready to submit the plan to the study or not. That is, you might identify 1 or 2 or 3 metrics where you want to go and try to make them a little bit better. We wanted that to be instantaneous and at your fingertips. This allows for less manual work, which of course then decreases the costs to run a study. And it makes it more feasible to collect more data and to run more studies. We wanted to allow study continuation. What does that mean? That means that even after the particular meeting is over and the presentation has been made, we wanted to let the study continue on, so that if you wanted to go back and resubmit a plan later just to see your score or just to see where your score would fall, you can do that. Or if you're a dosimetrist or some physicist or a treatment planner around the world and you didn't hear about a particular study until it was closed, we want you to still be able to log on to Prono, download the data, take the study, and score yourself. So to let the data live on. And not only that, but after the initial presentation or publication has been made, we're going to allow you a portal that you can interactively look at your results versus the population using some pretty powerful and cool tools we've built on the website. So finally, we want to post the education materials when we derive who the high performers are, what the best practices are for a certain planning system, what techniques work best. We want to provide a one-stop shop where some of those things can be gathered. And then finally, parallel studies. The amount of work to do a plan study is immense, and the automation allows it to be easier. This will allow us then to run multiple studies. If there's a study that's running for the AAMD meeting, someone else might say, I want to run a study for a certain proton meeting, or you name it. And as long as that study is going to be published or presented somewhere, you can contact us to run that public study. And because we've automated it, we can then run it in parallel. We don't have to wait till one study is done before we start another. Here's a schematic, more or less, of how it works, and then I'm going to show you a live demonstration. So Prono is based on the cloud. All the software, the engine, is built on the cloud, so you don't have to download any software. You just need a browser. Your first step will be to log in to the Prono site. You will have created a user profile. Then you can download the instructions and the required data. With those data, in this case for a plan study, it'll be the image set and the structure set. We want those to be the same inputs for everybody. You'll then import those into your planning system, create a plan, submit your plan and resulting dose back to Prono for an real-time scoring. Based on if you like your score or not, if you hit the metrics that you thought you could hit, you could go ahead and submit your plan. If you think you wanted to work a little more, you just go back, review the results, you can create another plan and replace what you uploaded previously. So really, Prono becomes a place you can come back to anytime you want to score your plan for that particular plan study. All of the rules, all the data, of course, will be the same. When you're ready to submit that plan, then you'll see it's pretty easy. You just click Submit. You're then officially part of the plan study. Once that plan study then has been presented or published, or once the plan study is closed for new submissions, you will then be able to log back in and analyze your results statistically versus your peers. And not just based on the total score, but for any individual metric, you'll be able to interactively see where did your result fall against the distribution of the population. So it really will allow you to study where did you excel, where do you need work, that type of thing. Of course, we want to expand the outreach. So what we're talking about here are public studies. These are, of course, free. We want to free for the participants and free for whoever's organizing the study. So of course we have a long and rich history with the AAMD. This year we're doing it in coordination with the Radiosurgery Society, and also a few years ago there was a spring clinical meeting of the AAPM where we did a study. In that case it was an SBRT lung. We want to make our engine available for other programs and associations. So if there's a particular interesting thing to learn in our industry, something our industry needs to learn, we can be contacted by that organizing body, and they can say, here's the study we want to do. And if it's going to be presented somewhere in public, therefore, the information disseminated to the public, or if it's going to be published, that's the type of study we want to facilitate for the public studies. We also want to be able to do private studies. These would be for large network or even TPS or delivery vendors to study a certain feature before they've released it, to validate an auto planning algorithm, to show, to really quantify the results. These would be private studies where not just anyone can take part in these, and of course no one would ever see the results except for who was commissioning the private study. What we have definitely wanted to do with Prono is to partner with the Plan IQ scoring system. There's a couple reasons for this. We definitely have a commitment to cooperate with and not compete against the leading vendors and their method. W.E. Deming, who's the quality guru, was always saying people should cooperate and share what they're best at rather than competing and being mediocre at all of them. So when we thought about how do we want to score plans, of course our first thought was we want to keep what's working, and what is working was the scoring that we've been doing since 2011, so the last 5 years. Why reinvent the wheel? It's been a long history of scoring this with this type of methodology. Everyone's familiar with it, so we definitely want to keep that. So without further ado, let's do a quick demonstration of how you sign up and participate in a plan study. The Prono tools you will find at the website pronosystems.com. Once you're there, you can join our community by clicking the sign up button or get started for free. What you'll do then is you'll just enter your email, you'll select a password, you'll enter some very basic demographic information such as what's your institution and what's your clinical role. Then you will join the Prono community. You will receive an email. When you receive that email, you click the verify email button, and then you're ready to go. Now I didn't demonstrate any of that because I'd like to jump right into what you do after you're part of the community. So once you've verified your email, you can go ahead and sign in. So you go to the sign in button, you enter your email and password, and click sign in. Now you'll see in this demonstration I've got a couple plan studies to choose from, and just going to choose the second one. This will guide you into the first tab, which are the instructions. You can go through the instructions here in the window, but you'll probably want to have those on hand, so just click download instructions and it'll download a PDF that you can keep on hand or even print out if you need to. This will have instructions, background of the plan study, what are the plan metrics, everything you might need to know to get started. When you've gone through the instructions, now you're going to download the data set. When you click this, it will download a zip file where all of the CT images and the structure set file are part of that zip. When you get that zip, you'll save it, you'll unzip it, and the source DICOM images that were inside of it you will import into your planning system. Different rules for different planning systems on how to get the DICOM in, but we've run these types of studies with all the major planning systems, and this is definitely possible, in most cases extremely easy to do. We'll leave those details to be documented in the instructions. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to go next to I'm ready to upload, review, and submit your first plan try. So it allows you to then select the plan and the dose. So we don't need the anatomy. We already know what those were because we gave them to you. But what you're going to do is just select your plan and your dose. Now those are DICOM files. So you'll just go to wherever you had exported those from your planning system. And here I have an example. I'll use an example of a pretty high score. So the plan is uploaded. Now you're going to upload the dose. Again, these are just DICOM files. The dose is uploaded. Now you're going to generate the results. Now before you generate the results, we want to get an estimate on roughly how long you took to generate this plan. This won't count for or against you, but it's a good thing to know. If you got a really good plan in a shorter amount of time, or if it took a long time, it's a good thing to know. So just give your best estimate. On this case, I'll just say 6.5 hours. You're ready then to generate results. Now this is where you're really going to get excited, because the calculation of that predefined plan quality algorithm is now going to happen on the web, and the results will be shown to you immediately. Depending on the data set, this may take a few seconds, maybe up to a minute or so, but it won't be determined by what your computer speed is. This is all running in a browser. The calculations are taking place on the cloud, so you don't have to worry about it. I should mention that just a web browser, certainly Chrome, Firefox, things like these, go to pronosystems.com, and that's how you get started. Now the results are done calculating. The first thing you'll see is we have a total of 19 slides that were produced. These slides will summarize your results. If you just click the first slide, you'll see a little viewer comes up, and here's a display of your plan quality. In this case, it's a very high score of about 133 out of a total 150. You can go then, so it has every single metric along with the goal, kind of as a Gantt chart, or your results as a Gantt chart. Did you hit the minimum goal? Did you hit the ideal goal? And what was your progress in between? Your points and the total possible points, or weight for that metric. You can go through then each and every metric. There'll be a summary of your plan. This was a 7-field IMRT case. And then each and every metric will be examined. So if you wanted to go and double check certain things that are based on a DVH point, or a calculation number like a confirmation number, all of those parameters you'll get. And here you'll notice again, we have partnered with Sun Nuclear to allow the continuation of the powerful scoring by Plan IQ. So if we go back to our total score, it's this methodology that allows us to produce this composite score of 133. So you can then also print this out if you want. You can download this report right here, and it will save a PDF into your tray or your downloads folder. There's a little bit just to summarize what you had for your demographics. And then the results will also be shown here as a spreadsheet. Now let's say you were not happy with this plan. You could go back, produce another slightly tweaked plan and dose, re-upload those, and it will take the place of the ones you uploaded. When you get to a point where you think you've done what you want to do, you can just click Submit Solution. What this does is it actually registers it as part of the study. Now don't worry, this isn't permanent. If a day later you decide you want to try again, you can go back and unsubmit what you submitted. But now the new tab is there where your submission, again, you get to review what you submitted, and this will live even after the study is closed. You can always come back in and see how you did. But what's interesting now is I mentioned the remove submission. Once a study's closed, this will be your data point. Of course, it's all anonymous. No one will ever know what your score is unless you're designated as a high performer, in which case you might be, your name might be called out, or you might be contacted to help us come up with the best practices for your particular planning system and or your particular delivery modality. So if you're not happy with your score, or you're a novice, or you don't think that your particular planning system or delivery is well suited for a plan study, that's okay. Your data point is just as important as any other. Because we don't just want to bias our results and get the people who think they have the best plans. We want everyone's results so that we have a good cross-section of what's really happening in the real world. No one will ever know if you have a score that you think is low. No one will ever know except you. Only if you get a really high score might you be contacted to help with training. Now the really exciting thing is now once a plan study is closed and the presentation has been made, then you can log back in and go to the Statistical Analysis tab. This allows you to interact, and for example here you can see the plan score as an orange, the plan score here was in this orange bar region. Now some of this backdrop here is a little bit of a fictional population. We just wanted you to see how the tools work. But you can see where you stood in the total points, but you can also select any of the metrics. Here, for example, is the what % volume of the target was covered by the prescription dose. Of course, you want that to be 95% or above, and you can see here where this one fell with respect to all the other submitted plans. And you can do this for every single metric. And the orange bar always represents the bin that your result fell in. So you can go through every metric one by one. You can select them and see those at any given time, even after the study is closed. Now, while the study is running, we don't want to show you these results versus the population because that might bias your results one way or another. We just want to let you know this exciting tool will be at your disposal when the plan study is closed for you to come back in and check on at any given time. And even if it's in a year later, and let's say you have new skills, new training, or a new planning system, you can always go back and upload a new plan and dose and get scored and see what your new score is. You can't submit it to the study because the study is over, but you can constantly assess your performance versus that original population. So we have a pretty exciting set of tools here for you to be able to interact and take part in a plan study. And now finally, let's talk about some of the details of this particular plan study, which again is being done in conjunction with the AAMD and RSS meetings, both of which take place in June of 2016. And it's an SBRT prostate. Who should participate? Actually, everybody. Even if you're not doing SBRT for the prostate in your clinic. Even if you don't think your clinic has the proper intrafractional image guidance that you would deem necessary for SBRT prostate. Even if you're not confident in the quality of your plan, you should participate because, again, it's anonymous, but we're also collecting valuable information, and having a real cross-section is going to be valuable. It's an all-else-equal study where we really just want to assess the plan quality, and we're not going to rule you out because you don't have the proper image guidance yet. We're trying to learn which systems, which planners, which planning systems can produce a very high-quality plan. And in this particular plan study, it's the first time ever we're going to be estimating or quantifying the delivery time. We're going to do that as the beam on time. So not only will we be able to study the plan quality, but we'll be able to estimate what would be the delivery time. And for a hypofractionated prostate case, of course, the delivery time is of great importance. When does the study take place? The study we are planning officially starting on April 15th and to run it for about a month. Now that doesn't mean you should take a month to generate your plan. It just means we want to allow plenty of time so you can schedule in a day or two where you think you're going to have time to work with your plan. The AAMD presentation will take place in Atlanta at their meeting. That's actually going to be on June 13th is the presentation. And then the RSS presentation just a few days later in Orlando at their national meeting, and that'll take place on Saturday, June 18th. How will your plan be scored? Well, this is really neat, and I had the pleasure to work with a pretty knowledgeable and excited advisory board. I wanted to call out some of the people that helped generate the plan scoring metrics for this particular plan study. Dr. Michael Zalewski from Memorial Sloan Kettering, Dr. Robert Meyer from Swedish Medical Center, Mary Ellen Masterson McGarry, she's from CyberKnife Center, and John and Jing, who are physicists at the Philadelphia CyberKnife Center. Then I helped facilitate, and Brian Wang, University of Louisville. And then, of course, our great friends at the Radiosurgery Society who made sure we were all making progress and continuing to meet. And actually, it was a series of 3 meetings with this task group to come up with a process to determine which metrics do we think are important and how to score each metric so that we can really learn and have a very challenging set of metrics where we can learn about what's possible to deliver to this type of case. Now, when you enter the plan study and you download the instructions, there will be a lot of details about what each metric is, what the goals for each metric are, and how the scoring will take place. What I'm showing you here is just a summary page just to highlight that there are 15 metrics that you'll be scored based off of. An additional metric is the estimated beam on time. We're only collecting data on that. We're not going to be basing it into the scoring at all. So 75, we used the ROR tradition of 150 points. That's a really good number because when you produce a score, you don't really know what's going to end up for that particular plan study to be a really good score or not a good score. So we didn't want to just choose it out of 100 where people might be inclined to think that 90% or above is good. We don't really know what's good until we've collected the statistics. So it's out of 150 is the tradition, and we are upholding that tradition. In this particular case, 75 or 50% of the points, so 75 points or 50% of the total, are based on coverage. So there's coverage to the PTV and coverage to the prostate. There's also a confirmation number metric, and then a metric that looks at the minimum dose to the PTV. Really the dose covering the entire PTV minus a clinically relevant small area of 0.03 cubic centimeters. So you can see those are the first four metrics. And then following that, we have organ at risk metrics for the rectum, bladder, urethra, bowel, penile bulb, neurovascular bundles, right and left femoral head, skin, and testes. So you can go through, and when you download the instructions, very detailed information about what metric you need to look at and what the scoring mechanism is. Now again, remember, the beauty is that you're going to get scoring in real time. So you don't have to create a manual spreadsheet to do the scoring. You can just log into Prono and get your Plan IQ score immediately. So how do you get started? Go to pronosystems.com. You register. Register as part of the community. Email, password, institution, enroll, all will be collecting. After you submit that, you need to wait for your welcome email. It should be sent within seconds. As soon as you get that email, there will be a link in the email you can click, and that verifies to us that you are a real person. It verifies that that was an email that you typed in the correct email address, and that we can correspond with you via that email. So now once you've verified the email, you're now ready to start working with Prono. So you can log in, sign in, go to the Plan Studies menu, go to the particular plan study, in this case the 2016 AAMD RSS plan study, download the instructions, download the data set. In this case, it's a pretty big data set. We've got 429 CT images and one DICOM RT structure set. So it's a pretty big zip. It might take a little bit to download, so just wait for it. Once it downloads, you unzip the data. That will be then your source DICOM that you can import to your planning system, and away you go. And again, when you're ready with your plan, you export your plan and the calculated dose as DICOM. Those files are what you upload to Prono, and that starts the fun of the self-scoring. So that's how you get started. We really want to set a record for number of participants this year. We feel like we're trying to make it easy and powerful for you, and to add value year after year after year, and just to get better as an industry. So good luck, and thanks for your participation.